In this section, you're going to learn offline tools to improve your learning process. These are the major stages of your learning process. First, you're researching, and in research, it's very important to print things out. So having a great printing setup is important. We'll talk about how to do that in a later video. Then consuming information. Your bookshelf is very important. That's where you're going to keep your books. Maybe that's where you're keeping 3-ring binders. Ideally, you're going to have a file cabinet system, and you're going to have as much as possible in that file cabinet system, books printed out instead of on a bookshelf where they're in a different format in a separate place, not organized by learning project number. The other major thing is a clipboard, so that you can be reading and you can be annotating no matter where you go. That clipboard should always be on you. Next thing, synthesis. Having a moleskin where you can keep notes, come up with ideas, come up with new theories, new metaphors. Often new scientific theories or theories in any area come from a metaphor. That's why innovators usually come from other domains, because they have access to a different set of metaphors, and when they apply those metaphors to the data, to the information, to the current state of knowledge, they're able to come up with new innovations. It can be useful to scan things in. So anything that you have in a moleskin or another journal, that should be scanned into your computer, and then that can be organized digitally. Because if you're writing on both sides of a piece of paper, each side of the piece of paper could be on a different subject. That needs to go in a different place. So the best option is get everything digitized and then move on from there. And if you're thinking, well, that sounds like a lot of work, because then you have to organize each file digitally and then print out each one individually. Well, what you do is you batch your synthesis. So when you're ready to do your synthesis, you may be printing out pages from the last 12 months or the last 6 months of moleskins, but you're doing it all at once. Then you can put those in a folder labeled printed, and now you have access to them and they're offline. And there's no confusion about, okay, was that printed or not? Where is all that information? It's all going to be in your physical, most of the time, file cabinet system. And that's where you're storing things, and that's how you're memorizing things. So I go more into this in the memory course about how you can use colored labels to set up a spaced repetition system with your file cabinet. But basically, you can just label things with different colors based on when you should be repeated, when you should get that next spaced repetition on them. Using tape or sticky notes to create those tabs is also important, so that you're keeping every document separated. The next thing is the offline habit. This is very important. Most of you are spending most of your time learning on the computer or connected to some sort of electronic device. Even if you're not looking at it, maybe in your pocket, and maybe receiving notifications all the time, taking you out of that flow state. So instead of having the habit or the default setting or default method of learning being connected, being on the internet, being on the computer, make your new habit being offline, and change from being a passive receiver of information where people are notifying you of when things are coming out or when a new post happens or when a new book comes out. Instead, put that in a batch mode. So have a habit of 1 day a week or 2 days a week or a single time every single day where you check for new things, new content, and then the rest of the time you're in control of what you're looking at, what you're reading, what you're consuming. That's extremely important. And one of the best ways to start building that habit is to turn your notifications off. The last thing, and this is a little bit of an extension of that, is the power of old technology and traditional methods. And what that means is you're not getting overwhelmed by technology with all the different options, all the different ways you could do things, like task switching. So it may seem like, well, I'm just switching between a bunch of different tabs, or I'm just switching between a few different applications. But in reality, your brain has to keep all of that somewhat active in your working memory or in your RAM. The same way that to have a fast computer that can have a bunch of applications, a bunch of tabs open, you have to have gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of RAM. If you go on an old computer and try to do that, it doesn't work. Well, here's the thing about our computers, the computers in our brain. They have basically an unlimited long-term storage. So you can store an almost unlimited amount of things if you do the spaced repetitions. The problem is you can't add more RAM. So you have it's like having an old computer that has a ton of hard drive space, but it's never going to be able to have dozens and dozens of tabs open, a bunch of different applications, a bunch of different apps, a bunch of different things running and doing different things at the same time. So you have to accept that and get into a mode where you're not trying to multitask, and you're doing more things as habits at a certain decided time at the same time each day or each week, and you're getting out of that habit of task switching, and that's going to free up a lot of your mental resources. This is where friction comes in. There's negative friction and there's positive friction. Negative friction is when, in order for you to do something good, like for example, let's say you don't eat very healthy food, you have to go to the store and buy salad ingredients in order to make a salad, whereas that bag of chips is at arm's length or right in the kitchen or whatever. So there's a lot of friction to you doing what you should be doing. On the flip side, there's no friction to going and grabbing that bag of chips. At the same time, or in the same way, having positive friction means that maybe those chips are at the store, but that salad is right there in front of you. So setting up the friction so that it's hard to do things the wrong way and easy to do things the right way is huge. So what that means is wait for a time when you're feeling good, when you're feeling like your basic needs are satiated and there's nothing that you're really craving, and take that precious time and use that to build a system that's going to have a lot of friction to doing the wrong thing and making it easy to do the right thing. In terms of learning, that means changing your information diet. So make it harder to consume that quick hit information that isn't really good for you. Make it really easy to consume that long form, deep, really valuable, full of golden nuggets, not a lot of fluff information. Make it really easy to do that and really difficult to consume that other type of information. Over time, you're just going to see huge improvements in the quality of your learning, the speed of your learning, and also just the enjoyment of the process.